Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today's story isn't about a romantic fairy tale, it's about a wedding that became the perfect stage for the coldest kind of revenge. You know how weddings are supposed to be about love and family? Well, for me, it became a showdown over $20,000 and the absolute humiliation of the one person I cared about most in the world, my grandmother. I was about to marry the woman I loved, Chloe, but her entitled family saw the wedding as a social climbing event, and they saw my sweet, elderly grandma as nothing more than an inconvenient eyesore. When my future sister-in-law, Brittany, decided to publicly humiliate my grandma with a seating arrangement straight out of a nightmare, I knew the line had been crossed. And I decided, right then and there, that the only thing getting married that day was me and my revenge. This is the story of how I let a $20,000 wedding bill land squarely on the lap of the people who thought they were too good for my family. Trust me, you do not want to miss the fallout. Let's dive in. Sorry, this table's for real family only, my future sister-in-law smirked, pointing my grandma toward a fold-out chair by the trash can. Everyone laughed as I sat alone. Then the bill arrived, $20,000. The waiter looked at me. I just smiled and said, "Not my table." My fiancée, Chloe, and I had been together for 4 years when we started planning our wedding. She was wonderful, usually, but when wedding planning started, a very different side of her and her family emerged. Specifically, her sister, Brittany, and her mother, Mael, seemed to take over every detail, turning the entire event into a massive status symbol display. My family is quiet, grounded, and financially comfortable, but we aren't flashy. Chloe's family, on the other hand, lives entirely for appearances. They constantly name-dropped people who wouldn't even recognize them and insisted on booking the most ridiculously expensive venue in the city, despite claiming they were on a tight budget. They kept bragging to everyone about how they were hosting and paying for the whole wedding, which was the first big lie. In reality, Chloe's parents contributed a flat $5,000, which barely covered the flowers. I, a successful software engineer, was silently footing the rest of the $20,000 plus bill because Chloe insisted that the venue and the high-end catering were non-negotiable must-haves. I signed all the vendor contracts and catering agreements under the condition that I would receive the final bills directly. I didn't mind paying, but I didn't appreciate the constant pretense that they were the benevolent hosts, while I was just the ATM. The real trouble started when we got to the guest list and seating charts. Chloe's family vetoed almost every person I wanted to invite outside of immediate family, claiming we needed space for more important guests. The biggest fight was over my Grandma Ruth. Grandma Ruth raised me after my parents passed away when I was young. She is, quite literally, my entire world. She's 87, a little frail, and has some hearing issues, so she needs to be seated somewhere quiet, warm, and close to me so I can help her if she needs anything. I insisted she sit at the main table, right next to me and Chloe. This is where Brittany decided to launch her campaign of entitlement. The main table is for immediate family and important guests, Liam, Brittany sneered during one planning session. No offense, but Grandma Ruth is, well, she's just not high society. My blood ran cold. That woman raised me, Brittany. She is the reason I am here. She is sitting at the main table. Chloe jumped in, trying to placate both of us. "Liam, honey, maybe we can put her at a nice side table?" The main table is reserved for the C-level executives Dad wants to impress. I looked at Chloe, genuinely heartbroken. "You are choosing your dad's potential business contacts over the woman who is family to me?" The tension was thick. I finally compromised. I made it clear that if she couldn't sit at the main table, she needed a quiet, comfortable table for herself and my other 3 closest relatives, positioned right next to the main table. I made Chloe and her mom promise this. They reluctantly agreed, mostly because they knew I held the purse strings and they didn't want to risk me pulling funding for the custom ice sculpture they desperately wanted. The days leading up to the wedding were a blur of tension. I felt increasingly distanced from Chloe, who seemed too busy managing her family's endless demands to notice how miserable I was. I kept reminding her about Grandma Ruth's seating, quiet, close, comfortable. She just kept nodding and saying, "Yes, darling, I promise." It's handled. The morning of the wedding was chaos, exactly as expected. I was trying to stay calm, focused only on marrying Chloe, hoping the drama would end once we said I do. My Grandma Ruth arrived looking absolutely beautiful in a dress I had bought for her silver hair perfectly done. She was beaming. I felt a surge of love and protectiveness that momentarily eclipsed my dread. The ceremony was fine, if impersonal. Then came the reception. I watched Chloe and her family, the fiancée, Amel, and Brittany escort their VIP guests to the main table. I walked Grandma Ruth over to where the compromise table was supposed to be. It wasn't there. Instead, the area near the main table was packed with the supposed C-level executives and people I'd never met. I pulled Chloe aside, trying to keep my voice low. "Where is Grandma Ruth's table?" We agreed. Chloe's eyes darted nervously. "Oh, we had to move things around. They needed the space for the Miller party, they just flew in from Dubai." I felt my blood run cold. I scanned the room desperately, looking for where my elderly, deaf, and slightly confused grandmother had been placed. I found her standing near a solitary, sad-looking fold-out chair placed next to the double doors leading into the kitchen, right next to the large industrial trash cans used by the catering staff. She looked confused and a little embarrassed. Brittany glided over, smelling strongly of expensive perfume and self-satisfaction. She looked at Grandma Ruth, then at me, and that's when she delivered the line that sealed her family's fate. She gestured to the sad little chair, a cruel, smug smile plastered on her face. "Sorry, Liam, this table's for real family only," she chirped, loud enough for a few nearby guests to hear. She then leaned in and whispered, "Your grandmother needs quiet, right? Well, the kitchen staff are very quiet back here. Besides," she raised her voice again, "we can't have her deafening people with her hearing aid static at the main table, now can we?" A ripple of uncomfortable laughter went through the small circle of her friends. My grandmother flinched. She didn't quite hear the words, but she certainly felt the malice. I saw her shoulders droop, and the beautiful smile she wore just moments ago vanished, replaced by a look of profound hurt and confusion. I had to clench my fists to stop them from shaking. I looked at Chloe, expecting her to intervene, to apologize for her vile sister, but she just offered a weak, dismissive shrug. "Just sit down, Liam. It's one night. It's handled." No. It was not handled. I walked over to Grandma Ruth, gently took her arm, and steered her away from the stench of trash and entitlement. "Come on, Grandma. We're going home." She looked up at me, confused. "But Liam, your wedding." "The wedding is cancelled, Grandma. Let's go." As we walked toward the exit, I pulled out my phone and quickly sent 2 messages. The first was to the catering manager, with whom I had the contract. The second was to Chloe. To Chloe, I sent, "I'm leaving. Your sister insulted and humiliated Grandma Ruth, and you did nothing. The wedding is over. Do not contact me again." To the catering manager, I sent, "Immediate contract cancellation. Do not serve anything further until the final bill is paid in full by the contracting party, which is not the current attendees. Send the bill to the head table, attention Mr. and Mrs. Davis, Chloe's parents. Do not accept payment from anyone else. My card is not authorized for payment." I got Grandma Ruth safely into a cab and sent her home with my closest cousin. I then returned to the venue, not to rejoin the party, but to watch. I sat in the bar area, out of sight but close enough to see the entrance to the main reception hall. About 20 minutes later, the first course was supposed to be served. Instead, a very professional, very serious waiter approached the main table with a large, official-looking folio. He approached Chloe's dad, the FIL, who was beaming, likely expecting some sort of special tribute. Instead, the waiter, whose face was completely impassive, laid the folio down. I watched the FIL open it, and his smile instantly dissolved. His face drained of color as he looked at the final bill, $20,000. For the venue rental, staff wages, and the appetizers that had been plated but not served. The full, non-refundable cost of the event, due immediately upon contract cancellation. Chaos erupted instantly. The FIL looked around wildly, then spotted the catering manager standing nearby. "What is this?" "Liam paid for this," he hissed. The catering manager, professional to a fault, merely responded, "Sir, Mr. James has informed us the contract is cancelled due to a breach of agreed-upon terms regarding a key family member's seating and welfare. The contract states that the payment is now due in full to secure the continued services. Mr. James has also specified that his account is not authorized for payment. Since the event was hosted and boasted about by you, we require immediate payment to continue service." The reality hit them like a physical blow. Their faces, the MIL, the FIL, and especially Brittany, were priceless. All the smug superiority was replaced by sheer terror. They suddenly realized the ATM they had mocked and used, was also the only person standing between them and financial ruin. The FIL started shouting, demanding to see me. The guests, who were now starving and confused, began whispering loudly. Brittany, realizing the scope of the disaster, began hysterically searching for Chloe. I stayed seated, watching them flounder. I saw Chloe rush over to her parents, her face pale, reading the text message I had sent her earlier. She tried to call me, then text me, but I ignored it all. She then started sobbing, realizing that not only was her high society wedding ruined, but her family was now publicly exposed as broke frauds. The climax came when the waiter, looking directly at the main table, pointed out the obvious. If payment is not secured within 5 minutes, we are required by contract to cease all service, including venue use, and request all guests to vacate the premises. The FIL, frantic, started pulling out his wallet, but quickly realized he only had about $400 cash on him. He rushed to his friends, attempting to borrow money, but nobody carries $20,000 in cash, especially not to a wedding they assumed was fully paid for. Brittany, utterly distraught, ran out of the reception hall. That's when she saw me, sitting calmly at the bar, nursing a sparkling water. She stormed over, her voice cracking with fury and desperation. "You absolute sociopath! What did you do? You have to pay. You signed the contract." I looked her dead in the eye, remembering the look on my Grandma Ruth's face by the trash can. "I did sign the contract, Brittany. But I also stipulated the seating arrangement for my grandmother. You breached the contract by humiliating her, which I consider a violation of the agreed terms and grounds for immediate termination." I smiled. "Besides, I never authorized payment for the services delivered to the Devises. That's your bill." She started screaming that I was ruining Chloe's life, that I was cruel, that I was petty. The entire bar was watching. "You'll regret this," she shrieked. I shrugged. "I doubt it. You know, I was sitting alone here, thinking about how my grandmother felt sitting by the trash. When the waiter brings your table the final check, you can just smile and tell him, 'Not my table.'" Brittany stood there, hyperventilating, utterly defeated. I looked past her and saw the caterers starting to dismantle the tables. The wedding was officially over. I finished my drink, walked out the front door, and left the entire mess, the $20,000 bill, the screaming guests, the publicly humiliated in-laws, and my former fiancée, behind me. The fallout was spectacular. I immediately filed for divorce, citing cruelty and emotional distress towards my family member. Chloe tried to fight it, but when I presented the financial records showing I had paid for everything and the numerous texts about the seating agreement, her lawyer advised her to settle quickly. She got nothing. Her family, after a week of frantic calls and lawyers, finally had to liquidate some of their meager assets to pay the $20,000 bill, plus massive late fees, completely destroying their carefully constructed image of wealth. Brittany and her parents were the talk of their social circle for months, and not in a good way. Grandma Ruth? She was slightly confused, but overjoyed to be back home with me. I took her on the vacation she always wanted, a 2-week cruise, just the two of us. We had a wonderful time. I paid for that trip myself, happily. Because some things are priceless, and respect for family is one of them. Wow. Just wow. The level of entitlement needed to pull a stunt like that to an elderly relative is just staggering. But Liam's reaction? Calculated, decisive, and devastatingly effective. I want to hear from you. Was Liam entirely justified in pulling the plug and leaving the Devises with the $20,000 bill, or did he go too far? What would you have done the moment Brittany insulted your grandmother? Let me know your thoughts down below. If you enjoyed this satisfying tale of revenge and justice, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you never miss another video. See you in the next one.